To create a fireball explosion, we'll need to create 3 very similar particle types and then convert them into a super emitter. We'll start off with a blank and go into the properties and rename the first type Flame. Under Behavior, switch particle angle to random. Turn on Intense and hit Preserve Color. Under Change Shape, locate the curly smoke particle shape and make active. Slide the frame speed to off and turn on Random Start Frame. Let's start adjusting the graphs. Increase the number graph to around 20 and move the size up to 50. Slide the velocity down to 0 so that the particles don't wander off too much, and set the weight to around -20. In the variation graphs, we'll set the life, number, and size variation to 20. Set the velocity variation a little lower, somewhere between 10 and 15, so that the particles don't move off to the sides very much. We'll increase the weight variation to about 20 to break up the speed of the rising particles, and spin variation can go up to 50. In size over life, add a key point at about 0.75 and move it up to 170. Move the last point down to 0 so that the particles shrink as they die. In velocity over life, add a key with the value of 170 at around 0.75. Under Transparency, turn on Use Full Gradient and add in a slight fade in and fade out. For color, pick a series of medium browns. Let's increase the emitter's visibility graph up from the default of 50 all the way to 100. This will make the final effect stand out a lot more and give it more contrast. Our first particle type is done. Now it's time to make the other two. Duplicate the flame type and rename it Glow. We'll only do 2 things to change this one. Start off by turning off Preserve Color so that it brightens everything behind it. Second, change the shape back to the basic blur. Select Flames and duplicate it a second time. Rename this one Smoke. Turn off Intense altogether and head into the Colors tab. Change the colors down to a series of dark browns or grays. Hit OK to save all your changes up to this point. Now it's time to convert this into a super emitter. We need the free emitters to move straight up, so enter the emission angle and set it to 90. Then move the emission range to 5. Let's zoom the whole emitter down so we can get a better look at everything. Zoom out to around 30. Open up the free type and lower the F-life down to around 30. This effect looks best with a lot of particles, so change the F number graph to 1000. We need the particles to fire out very fast, so increase the F velocity to 600. Let's also adjust the overall number graph so we can see how this looks as an explosion. Drop a keyframe with a value of 100 at frame 10 and another at frame 11 with a value of 0. Now we've got a rising burst of smoke and fire. We want the free emitters to fall back down to create the mushroom effect, so we need to increase the F weight. Move that up to 1600. Now the free types rise up and then begin to fall back down on themselves. The particles, however, keep moving upwards. You can adjust the velocity and weight of the free emitters some more in the overlife graphs. Set a key at about 0.5 of f velocity over life with a value of 100, and then another at 0.5 with a value of 200. The free emitters will double their speed as they get to the peak of the blast. Set the first key in f weight over life to 0, then keep it that way until about 0.1, before increasing it quickly back to 100. Now the weight doesn't affect the free emitters right away. We need the free emitters to move off to the sides more at the peak of the blast. To do that, we'll increase the f motion randomness. A setting of 350 should look good, but you can increase it even higher. To control the motion randomness better, go into the f motion randomness over life graph. Drop the first key down to 0 and make a new key at about 0.25 with a value of 200. Now to start adding in some variation to the free emitters. F life, F velocity, F weight, and F motion randomness variation can all go up somewhere between 10 and 20. The final step in shaping the motion of the free emitters and particles is to change the F zoom over life graph. Drop in two keys at about 0.1 and 0.3 with values of about 50 to shrink down the blast at the stem. Give it a big increase at about 0.6 and keep it like that until 0.9. Slide the final key down to 0 so that the free emitters shrink down out of existence. Alt-clicking the points will smooth out the zooming. To adjust the overall size when fitting the blasts into your scenes, use the F-zoom property. Here's one last trick to change the color of the leftover cloud at the end of the blast. Increase the tint strength above the particle types all the way to 100. Now the whole blast is tinted light gray. Head up to the overall tint strength graph and drop it down to 0. We want the tint to kick in after the mushroom blast has reached its peak. Create a new key at frame 30 with a value of 0 and another at about frame 50 with a value of 50. Now pick a new tint color. A deep red should look good.